I'm going to be talking to you tonight, our weekly Facebook Live. It's National Crime Victims' Rights Week. For those of you that don't know what that is, we're going to get into that a little bit tonight. I have a guest with me tonight. Please chime in and let me know. Make comments. Let us know how things are going over here because we're trying something a little new tonight. We're going to have a split screen. Joining me is you may recognize and know. If you don't recognize him, there's his name, Carl Harms. Carl Harms is the Homicide Victim Specialist at the State Attorney's Office 4th Judicial Circuit here in Jacksonville, Florida. Carl, why don't you talk a little bit about the State Attorney's Office and what you do there, since you probably know it a little better than I do.
No, we kind of grew up in the ranks together. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we are currently obviously working under different conditions, but normally what I do is the homicides and cold cases. I'm also the lead over the victim services unit, and we're as everybody else is, we're dealing with a lot of challenges right now, but everything's going great. We got great leadership. We got perfect posture to do what we have to do, so, as long as the Supreme Court has put out the orders.
Yeah. So for those of you, because Carl and I have known each other for a number of years now, but I realize that we end up getting a lot of new fans and new people watching these. So I want to kind of give them a little bit of a background. In fact, tomorrow is the anniversary, as the phrase you coined, of your dad's death, right? And
yes, sir.
And your dad was killed by two drunk drivers traveling from Jacksonville, Florida to where was his final destination?
Would have been Hammond, Louisiana, but the crash occurred in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Yeah,
it's
so
just outside of, not too far from his final destination, like 70 miles.
Yeah. So as kind of our background, was we came in contact with each other and got to know each other through another organization that unfortunately is no longer around anymore, but Compassionate Families was a group that was here in Jacksonville. And we both attended a vigil during National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Right?
Oh, yeah. It was National Crime Victims' Rights Week
So was that
10
years? Yeah, that was 10 years ago. So we've known each other 10
years. My first one was 2009.
Yeah. And then my first one was 2010 because my dad was killed in October of 2009. And so this would have been the first Victims' Rights Week in 2010 after my dad's murder. And so we met there, just, talked a little bit, and then we both started kind of volunteering and doing things for that organization. I went on and became a victim advocate and started working there. And you were my IT guy. You were my confidant, the guy I could turn to. I mean, when we started at Compassionate Families, we had an AOL email address, no website. Had nothing. And you had already built some of that and designed some of that, and
redid all the brochures.
You did all the graphics, all the marketing, all the media. So and to the point where you worked there, every single day for way more than 8 hours a day for how many years, you know what I mean, as a volunteer. I mean, you were there
4 years, I think.
4 years. And so so all that time, we worked together as co-advocates and colleagues, and over the years when things changed, I left and started Project Cold Case, and you went on to the state attorney's office, where you have quickly rose through the ranks there as well. You're now not just a victim specialist, which is you're that's what they don't call them victim advocates at the state attorney's office, right? They call them victim specialists.
No, sir. We all have our own specialty. My specialty is homicide, of course, but obviously, um, but it's homicide, not DUI, and that's for a specific purpose. That doesn't mean I can't do DUI, but it is on the loss, traumatic loss. But I also cross-trained in domestic violence and anything that we could do in there. So the leadership in our office right now is fantastic, and they've put a lot of emphasis on victims' rights and victim services, and they wanted me to head that up and try to revamp everything and focus on what is right and what has obviously been voiced by the voters with Marcy's Law and putting that in place.
Yeah, I would get into some of that with you too. And one of the reasons we've had you on before on one of these Facebook Lives, and I encourage anybody that wants to know more about your story and your dad's story, because it is truly inspiring. We have a YouTube page where we download all of the Facebook Lives, and people can go back through them. So they can go there and check out the first Facebook Live we did together. And also, actually, your dad shows up on our website. It wouldn't be what people would traditionally call a cold case. But again, your situation was, like all cases, was extremely unique. Your dad was he was coming over like a little overpass or a little incline.
Yeah, he was actually coming up to the bridge, and before he had come to the bridge, there was a 2-car collision, and my dad was the 3rd car collision.
A drunk driver hit another car.
Correct.
In front of your dad. When your dad came up, he was involved in that crash, trying to avoid the crash that had occurred, and left a disabled car in the middle of the road, stopped in the middle of the road.
Correct. And then he came around and came to rest in the emergency lane. As he was sitting in the emergency lane, it was approximately 12 minutes that went by. And in that 12 minutes, they were checking on the other gentleman that was in the middle of the interstate that had been hit. And as they were walking towards to check on my father, they seen the back of his head moving, but they were walking towards him. And as they did, they heard yelling in the background, heard engine whining. And the witness had turned around, seen the car heading straight forward, and he never hit his brakes. The second guy came along. He was the second truck driver.
Right.
He careened into the back end of the father's car. And it's pretty graphic. I explain it. I go around talking about it. I haven't been doing it a lot lately right now because I'm putting a lot of attention and a lot of matter into what we're doing at the state attorney's office. But I will get back out there to talk to these kids about making responsible choices. But the collision had sheared the seat pin with such an impact that it threw him into the windshield and into the back, and took him out of his pants. Actually, he's still wrapped up in his seatbelt.
Yeah, and when I was talking about how it wouldn't be traditionally characterized as a cold case, it was the initial crash. The driver that caused that initial drunk driving crash fled on foot before the second crash, and she fled on foot.
She fled as the second crash happened.
As the second crash was happening. She was eventually caught. She was charged with your dad's death. There was, there's a whole thought. I encourage people to go back and watch the original to get.
In 11 years of going through that.
And that was when I met you, as you were still, dealing with a lot of this stuff, and your she did eventually get sentenced, and it was a horrible sentence, and she ended up getting out and then violating and getting thrown back in, getting out, violating, getting thrown back in. I think she's currently back in prison from serving the remainder of her original sentence that was suspended at the time.
Yeah, so that's actually what got me into advocating. It's what got me standing up for the rights that we are provided under Florida State Statute 960. Of course, in Mississippi it was different, but they have crime victim bill of rights over there too, like they do in most every state. But that was one of the things that got me into it, was the fact that, and this is, respectfully to the prosecutor that was over there, I was not consulted with as far as what the sentence should be. And then they had suspended the case, or suspended the part of the punishment. And whenever she violated, came back, that's what brought her back into that session. And that was an 11-year process. After she got in, she went out, had the family reach out to me and tell me how horrible I was because I had turned her in, because she was posting all over the place. Now she's back in serving.
I remember you showing me those photos, and you actually had those photos for a long time debating on what you were going to do. It's not like you had this.
No, I had them for a year. I tracked her for a year, and I just said at the 1-year anniversary, I said, okay, this is enough. She's not changing. So I emailed the original sentencing judge. I emailed the district attorney, the Gulfport Police Department, Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi, and Department of Corrections. And within 2 hours, they picked her up. And when they picked her up, she tested dirty. Dirty meaning she had drugs in her system.
Yeah.
Which she was violating her probation, and she got minimal time for that time. And then when she got back out, she ended up getting caught in another county because all of her other violations over in Mississippi would go in front of the MDOC, Mississippi Department of Corrections.
Hey, can you see that, Carl?
Hey.
Latresa saying hello to us. I wanted to make sure you saw it. We also have Chad Livernash up in Wisconsin. I assume you know that case too. Tina Hines, and we've got a number of people watching. And I just not to throw you off there, but I saw a couple of those. And I wanted to know what that button would do, so I thought I would click it and see. But I wanted to say, yeah, you were saying that when she got out the next time that she got,
she ended up violating outside of the county, which is what brought her back in front of the original sentencing judge. And the original sentencing judge was put out that she had violated 3 times and she had not been punished. So she is now serving her suspended sentence that they had suspended back then. The DA had suspended without consulting or talking with me.
And the second driver was identified and basically just was never charged with anything.
That is still a mystery. That is still a mystery. I've done a FOIA request. I've done a few requests to try to get police reports and stuff over there. I don't ever, especially with with your group and Project Cold Case and yourself, I don't ever want people to lose hope or give up. And I'm not at that point. I know it's like an engine. You got to change the oil every now and then, So this engine, the oil in me is just kind of dirty right now. So once I get that oil changed, I'm going to get back up and I'm just going to start going back after Mississippi and try to get those documents. And because I never knew what happened to them. I did speak to the sheriff probably about a year after the original sentence. I spoke with him, and he had I had found out that same driver had gotten another DUI crash, fled the scene of that one. They apprehended him, charged him with DUI first offense, and then sent him to immigration. So he never had to face what he had done over here. I still don't know what he looks like, and I can't ever say. I don't think any of us. I know Ryan and me. I want to say we grew up on this, but we did. We grew up on the fact of knowing that not any one of us can say we know how you feel, and we never will overshadow anybody's loss. But at the same time, there's a sense of understanding that we do have, and that sense of understanding is the unknown. And I don't know what this guy looks like. I know he'll never face the charges. I know his name, and that's one advantage I have.
And we did a little spotlight on your dad's case a number of years ago to kind of explain, that spectrum of justice. And, we're going to be talking about victims' rights here. So I want to get to that. But it's, I think sometimes we think that with an arrest comes, a conviction, comes all the answers that you've been searching for. And, that word that we don't use, but closure, people think that an arrest leads to all those things, but it's a very, very complicated situation. And
No, and that's and again, I know you know this, and I want to let your viewers know the same thing because we grew up on the same trend. But it'll never go away. It's a terrible knife wound to the arm, and even when if anybody's ever been cut very deep or had a broken bone, you know that if you take your fingers and just poke it every now and then, it hurts. It's the same thing. This pain that won't go away. Tomorrow will be 13 years. April 22nd, it happened to be National Crime Victims Rights Week 2007 when my father was killed. So National Crime Victims Rights Week is really close to my heart, obviously because of that. I know, and you and I both kind of share something. I have my day of remembrance, and you have your dad's birthday. Your dad's birthday is on the 25th. My dad's anniversary, Remembrance Day, is on the 22nd. So I know for both of us, it's this week is really important to us.
It is. Yeah, it's always been, speak for myself, but comforting for me to have a week where there were events going on. I mean, when we were at Compassionate Families, we held a vigil. There was a press conference on Mondays. There was a Victims' Rights Week awards luncheon. There were other organizations in town that hosted events. And of course, this year, nobody's doing anything. We've got a virtual vigil that we're going to be hosting Thursday night here on Facebook. And we hope that, that our survivors and friends and family will join us and post a picture of their loved one, a memory of their loved one, in the comments. But that's different, and like I said, I don't want to speak for you, Carl, but for me, there was comfort with the 25th being my dad's birthday, that it was during this week of, honoring and remembering victims.
Somehow it always made it didn't make it better. It didn't make it did take a little bit of the sting away. It took a little bit of the sting away to know that I was around people that I can't imagine being in their shoes. And I know I was around other people that were looking at me and saying the same thing. And I'm like, you virtually get into an eye contact battle with everybody and saying, I can't imagine how you feel. I can't imagine how you feel. But that's the great thing. That's the great thing about individual grief, is that we all grieve in our own way. There's no right way and there's no wrong way. There's just your way.
And you hit it with that, surrounding yourself with other people. I mean, it's a very lonely feeling and helpless feeling when you're going through this grief by yourself. I mean, it's debilitating. And when you can find other people that you just an automatic comfort knowing that they've been through something similar. Not everything's different. Every case is different, but the fact that they know what it's like to lose somebody traumatically, violently, like that was just that comfort that most of us were looking for. And whether we were looking for it or not, it was the comfort that most of us needed. And so I know that, you and I, oh man, the hours we put in with, Miss Jones and V and the Mitchell family to put those vigils together,
it's definitely something that I miss. I mean, all of the stuff that would go on during the week, it's something I miss because obviously Compassion Families is not around any longer. But especially this year, dealing with what we're dealing with the isolation and and the interruption in our daily lives. But now we're dealing with that on top of with National Crime Victims Rights Week, with not being able to I wouldn't say celebrate, but commemorate. Maybe it
Right.
is.
Yeah. Good way to put it. Yeah. Good way to put it. And I agree. We were, really looking into ways uh, that we could have a in-person event this year, months ago, in planning phases, and obviously there's no way that can happen. But I saw Karen just ask. I mentioned the virtual vigil. Yes, it's going to be live. We'll be live streaming the vigil. Again, it's it is what you make of it, but we're going to have a live video stream going, commemorating and honoring the victims that have been submitted to Project Cold Case that we know are out there. And we encourage everybody that's been impacted by homicide to come check it out. Again, post pictures of your loved one in the comments, post memories, post some words of encouragement and inspiration in a time where I think we could all use that. And we will try to do something, uh, you know, video wise remotely that we would hope to do in person, and hopefully we will be able to do in person before too long. Carl, we've already gone 20 minutes. We haven't even gotten into
Well,
the
one thing I did want to say, just talking about the losses, and I just want to. I've seen a lot in the years. I'm not going to say. I mean, I know the hair gives them away, but I don't want to say how many years. But in the years that it's been, um, going back to crisis response before I had even gotten into this, when I was with the fire department. And one thing I want to remind everybody out there that are holding hope, uh, that something will be solved. That you'll get those answers. It's something that I instill in every single victim that comes in. Whenever we deal with it at the state attorney's office, is I don't want to take anything away from the judicial system. The judicial system holds people accountable, and that's what needs to happen. Hold people accountable, whether it's hold people accountable for what they've done, or release the ones that don't. If they didn't commit the crime, then they shouldn't be locked up. If they did commit the crime, then they should be locked up. However it might be. But outside of the judicial, we don't, as specialists or advocates, we don't practice law. We practice compassion. So what I try to instill into them is that this judicial process is only temporary.
Can you see that?
I think even Ms. Burris can attest to this too. This is the judicial process is temporary. You get that done. You get somebody to blame. You have somebody to point the finger at, and you have somebody responsible for what has happened. But it's not like a broken vase. When that process is over, you don't get the vase back. Yeah. You do get the vase back, but it's broken. And I think we even did one of those in our Camp Natty, with a flower pot, where you smash the flower pot, glue it back together, and there's still pieces broken. So even though the judicial process is good, do understand and know, and that it's not gonna be the solve all. And that's when you quickly realize that closure is a word that we really don't believe in.
I mean, it's an unrealistic expectation to put on families when they're in their most vulnerable, that somehow, some way, at the end of this, you're going to be whole again, and there's going to be closure, and everything will go back to the way it was. And we just have seen it too many times. It doesn't work that way. And while
I think each one of us are actually dealing with that now. I mean, not in the same fashion or in the same form, but dealing with this isolation and COVID. When we get to post-COVID, hopefully we get to that part. When you get there, you're going to realize that you're going to live a new life. You're looking at life with new eyes now, because we've been forced to go through a pandemic and some situations. So you're learning to live again and going through that process.
Yeah, there'll be a new normal,
Absolutely.
again. And I mean, to me, I kind of equate it like nothing's ever going to fill that void in my heart of my dad. You know what I mean? No matter. And for me, an arrest I'm not looking for arrest to bring me closure. I'm looking for an arrest to hold the individual accountable. Absolutely. And to prevent them from harming someone else. Right. Like,
Absolutely.
And so I think if you have those expectations, as opposed to you're going to win something, you're going to be whole, everything's going to be back to normal again, that's a dangerous thing for people to believe. And unfortunately, if you do just look at the headlines and you listen to the interviews, like that word is used so often, closure, that it's become an expectation, just because you haven't ever experienced this loss, but you hear these other people say that word, and then you experience a loss. So now you're just following suit, and you're like, well, I've heard all those other people talk about closure. That's what I want. That's what I need. And
Personally, I don't use it. I use it in these kind of discussions when we're talking about this, but I don't use it. I don't use that word. I won't use the word closure in that situation, in that topic. But I do tell other people, whether it be attorneys or police officers, whatever it might be, if anybody was to use that and they are the victim, they've earned the right to say that.
Yeah.
But it's not your place to correct them.
No.
And it's not your place to use that word either. So,
right.
That's just
we have that discussion a lot in our office. A victim can use that word if they want to use it. A survivor can use that word. But I think it is our responsibility as advocates to let people know.
And pose.
We're not gonna lead you astray, and offer you something that we're not sure exists, so we're not gonna say it. If you find closure or you find something, that helps you, then great, but Carl, I want to talk a little bit about victims' rights. You're like a 10-time recipient of victims' rights awards. You locally, you were recognized once as a courageous victim, once as victim advocate of the year. You've been recognized in Tallahassee in the Capitol. You have really kind of paved a way and carved a niche in helping people that has been inspiring, and based a lot on what you talked about earlier, what happened to you, what you experienced in dealing with the judicial process of your dad's death, and so this is really your wheelhouse. I mean, you went into the state attorney's office with a little different background than most of the advocates that were already there. When there was a change in regime, and change in leadership there, and Melissa Nelson was elected state attorney, she really lent an ear to you, to kind of gauge what you felt was appropriate actions within that office, how to handle certain situations. And she's really promoted you to a supervisor role and allowed you to have her ear and tell her when there are issues and when there are not. We had Marcy's Law come in to Florida and to a number of states across the country. It wasn't the iced cake that everybody was pitching it as, but we've had to deal with that, with those kinds of issues and struggles along the way. And you've actually been appointed to a task force that reviews those things and deals with victims. I don't want to diverge off topic, but with unsolved cases, a lot of victims' rights don't come into play until an arrest is made. You know what I mean? So you really are the gatekeeper to make sure that victims' rights are afforded to them, that they're aware of them, and that they're enforced. And I know you take that job very seriously. And but for a lot of us that are still waiting for that arrest, most of those rights are to be seen, to be heard, to be, involved in every step of the process. And it's, so we're kind of left out in the cold a little bit on that. And Project Cold Case is tried to bring that up to The powers that be in victims' rights, whether it's the Attorney General's office or Marcy's Law or whoever, that that if you want to include all, rights fraud, then you have to include the unsolved survivors as well, and that means thinking about other ways to other rights and other ways to provide for those individuals. And so we're just at the very beginning of fighting those fights. You know what I mean? And that's going to be years and years in the making. But
you think back. I mean, being National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and we're celebrating that with it being signed in and the actual designation of the week. But you go back and look at it and see where it just was there, and then it kind of died off. No pun intended. I'm sorry about that. But it just kind of died off. It's just 960 Florida State Statutes 960. People stopped talking about it. It got to the point where even the people that are our voters didn't realize that we had rights.
Right.
So what Marcy's Law did is it resurfaced it, and when it resurfaced it, it gave us back that it ignited a fire again in the community and in the victims that we do have rights. I think another thing that has ignited a fire is our leadership at our office personally, the state attorney's office and the Fourth Judicial Circuit, is the compassion, the leadership, the great leadership that we have that has led us into the direction to ensure that even if a case does not have an arrest, that we do something to try to reach out to them. It's hard to reach out to every single one, trying to touch every single one, as we already know, with as many murders as we have, but we will do everything within our power to reach out to them. And Melissa makes a point of it. Our elected state attorney makes a point of sending correspondence out to them, let them know we are here for you, because they do have rights. You guys, the cold cases do have rights. The people that don't have immediate arrest do have rights, as far as being informed and being connected up with victim crime comp and making sure that there's some kind of assistance there.
Yeah, and it's important to note that your office with Melissa Nelson in charge, that is an initiative started where you reach out to everybody, and that her office will meet with every victim family as well, whether an arrest has been made. I know we have worked with you to facilitate multiple meetings with victims' families where an arrest has not been made, and it is not in the judicial process. That's really, really unique, because the state attorney's office, the traditional role is strictly that judicial process of prosecuting a crime against the state, and Melissa has just time and time again seen issues that needed to be addressed beyond that normal scope, and attacked them, and taken them on, head first. And so, she's instituted a cold case initiative within your office. It's just instituted a conviction integrity unit within your office. She's obviously focused on victims and their rights. And that's the perfect segue into, the COVID virus right now. I'm in my home office, you're in your home office. You know what I mean? Like, most people are having to work out of their homes. Victims, crimes didn't stop. There was actually violence has gotten worse in Jacksonville during this pandemic.
The media has something bigger to focus on right now, so they're not. And they have a purpose. The media has a purpose. Obviously, we respect that. But right now, all they are focusing on, which I'm appreciative of, is the COVID. Locally and nationally.
Well, and it's, I have a lot of friends in the media, and I think they do a wonderful job, and especially for cold cases, unsolved cases. Without them, our voices would be muted. There's only so much we can do without their help, but you're right. Whether it's a hurricane, whether it's You know what I mean? A pandemic. That's the focus of the newsroom right now. And so what may appear that violence is down in our area or in someone else's area may just be perception. You know, what you're seeing. It's not, the murders aren't the headline right now. COVID is the headline. So, you know, but it's been very violent.
But you got
And
to
so,
you got to think of the internally with our office too, but because with every homicide, there's an attorney that's assigned on a weekly rotation that goes out. But think about those law enforcement officers that are out there doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing to protect us. To the point where I think the mayor had even brought some people in and invoked where if they had recently retired, he was going to try to bring them back.
yeah,
That right there is a sign that
yeah, I think there's a waiting period, and he waived that
right.
so that you could come back to work. Yeah, I mean and back to your job and victims' rights. Uh, People are still out there committing crimes. They're still committing murders, and people are still being arrested. And so in a moment in time where, as a family, you're finding out your loved one was murdered, you're really, I mean, you're stuck in your house, for the most part. Um, Going to the funeral homes, having a funeral, all those things
But you
that are
can't
the
you can't even
normal.
have a funeral at this point. I
You can't
mean,
even have it.
it's a virtual funeral.
So you're not going to go to the courthouse. You're not going to see the arraignment in person. You're not going to, those things that would be normal what would normally be not a normal situation. The murder.
Normal in an unnormal situation. Yeah.
Right. If that makes sense. You know, they have the right to be there. The family has the right to be heard. The right to attend, the right their notification, and they can't go. And so I, your office is under a great deal of more stress, I would imagine, because you know not only do you have to take that into account, but you have to do it from your home, right? So,
Right.
so
So we've basically become, this whole Zoom thing, and one of the things that's really a big focus right now is obviously the shootings and the homicide. Um, but for us, and this is across the nation, I've been, with Nova. I think you were in a training webinar with me too. One of the things that we're really focusing on right now is keeping an eye on the domestic violences that could possibly turn into a homicide or anything like that. But what's going on right now because everybody's sheltered together, and them not recognizing and realizing that there's still assistance out there or afraid to make that call, turn that person in, have them arrested, and know that the jails are being overcrowded or they don't want the pandemic to get in there. So there's a possibility they're going to get back out. Now, are they going to place that call? I would hope that they would. The resources are still out here.
right. And we've seen that, domestic violence, child abuse, all of those things are actually peaking, and there's no one to report them. The kids aren't going to school, so the bruises aren't being seen. The abused spouse is not going to work, so again, the bruises aren't being seen. Um, and your office, has to still be there for all of those people, and and provide the same rights to those families that they would, you know what I mean, in a regular situation. And so we talked about this a little bit because we had a situation come up where a family, one of our families that had a case that took a couple of years to get solved, had the defendant accepted a plea deal here in the last couple of days, without getting into specifics or identities, and the survivor family was preparing victim impact statements, which is again something that they're allowed to do. And the question came up, um, would the family be allowed to attend the sentencing hearing? But on top of that, there's another layer of complexity. would a family want to attend a sentencing hearing during a pandemic? Because this might not necessarily be you're not allowed to come into the courthouse. This may be I take care of my mother. I'm elderly. I have a immune deficiency. I'm just better safe than sorry.
I think it's also emotionally not fair as far as the victim goes that process. If they were to move forward, that process would what we're going through would overweigh or have weight on what you're trying to say and convey to the court. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the pressure of the outside circumstances, everything that's going on, overweigh what you're actually saying. And
right.
People,
we got to wonder if people are focused on anything except getting in, getting out.
Right.
And,
no, exactly. Exactly.
And so, you're my guy too. When I have questions like that, when a family calls me with questions like that, then I go to you. You know what I mean? Because I know you're at the forefront, and if you don't have the answer, rarely that I bring something up that you guys haven't experienced or thought about. But if it happens, you get to the bottom of it and figure out, what to do. So kind of run us through what's happening right now. There's a speedy trial law, for defendants that once they're arrested, you have, 120 days to go to, or I don't know.
Yeah, and as we said a few minutes ago, I'm not a lawyer, but what I do know is what has been obviously released by the Supreme Court, the Florida Supreme Court, and this is under Administrative Order 20-23 in regards to speedy trial. Gotta back up. I thought you were going to start with something else. I'll down.
Give it to us all. Tell us how your office is handling all those things. Whether
it kind of leads into it because a lot of the things that was waived in here was also use of technology in courts, which goes into what we're doing now as far as potential Zooms. I know of 2 cases that have had hearings, which the family has been appeared at via Zoom. The judge was Zoom, the defendant was Zoom, the attorneys were Zoomed. And if anybody doesn't know what a Zoom is, obviously that's the big word right now, but it's via video, just like we're doing right now. And obviously you just keep the mic muted until you're addressed by the court. So we've made those provisions, and the court has made those provisions in making that work. I'll tell you one thing, again, with the great leadership of our office, is they did want us out of the office immediately, just to help mitigate that, the spread of it. And to flatten that curve, which I know everybody's tired of hearing that, but flatten the curve, what was going to effectively happen. So we immediately went into the remote process, and I think the remote process has actually really been great. Every person in our office just has been working tirelessly. It does take a little bit more time to Zoom with people, to communicate with people, versus just picking up a phone and talking to them. Because you have technology issues, you have this, you have other things that will end up happening when you're trying to set up the Zoom. So what may have been a 45-minute phone conversation, or maybe even a 15-minute conversation, a 15-minute phone conversation turns into a 30-minute Zoom.
Right.
So it's kind of doubling your day and doubling your orders.
Well, it's nice to see people that you don't live with, have a conversation.
And that's another thing too. And I think it was we were talking about this earlier, but I think it was Beth that was saying it, Beth Rossman that was saying it not too long ago, and something that she was talking about is that, I believe it was her, what do you do when the person that's supposed to be providing you the services, is supposed to be providing you the compassion, is living the same nightmare you are?
Yeah.
So we're kind of all going through it, but there's an added stress on those victims. The added stress of the isolation, the added stress of the quarantine, keep people away, and some of us are just really compassionate people, and us as specialist advocates, we we're very personal, and we want to be there for the people. When they start crying, you can't console them, you can't, so everything's been put in place. Our office moved really quickly to get things effectively done. We're doing everything remotely. We're working towards what was already an initiative of our elected state attorney to go paperless. So that has actually pushed our buttons. Um, and trying to look at this in a positive way is that this has potentially prepared us for what might come whenever we have to do something else.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about, so obviously your office is being very proactive about this. The Supreme Court has issued rulings on how things, are to go to follow some semblance of law during this period. So far, you have not had a sentencing or a trial
Yeah.
during this.
As a matter of fact, in that Supreme Court order, they have suspended all jury proceedings and jury trials, all grand jury proceedings, jury selection proceedings, and criminal and civil jury trials shall remain suspended. And those are suspended until May 29th at this point.
Yeah, and part of what you were sharing with me earlier before we went live was that this is also the transport from prisons and jails. I mean, again, talk about the curve and flattening it. If you want to see it peak, just keep inmates coming back and forth from prisons to county jails to courtrooms, to vans and then back again.
And most people would say, I mean, not most people, but some, I've heard this said before, is that, what does it matter? They're just going to spread it amongst the inmates. Well, there's other people that work in there too. There's other people that have, there's your correctional officers, and we got to think of the whole thing, and where does it stop? And we got to do that. So in the very beginning, yes, they did. I believe it was FDOC, Florida Department of Corrections, had terminated transport for a little while, and I think they went back. My understanding is, and I'm not sure if I'm correct or not, but my understanding is I think they're going to one transport a month now.
Yeah.
At this time,
Carl, I saw a question come in, and I think it's important to, while we have somebody like you on here, if it's a little bit off topic, but while we have you, I want to ask it. I'm going to throw it up here on the screen, and I want to kind of make sure everybody understands here a couple of things. One, Carl works at the state attorney's office in Florida for a specific circuit that is Duval, Clay, and Nassau counties. And that's so what he's speaking on, is his experience in these counties. We have, between the two of us, we have lots of contacts and experience outside of that. But remember that what we say is how we know something would be handled here in our city and with our state attorney's office. And it may not be the same in your area, but we'll try to differentiate between specific things. So obviously, Carl, I think you can read it, but if you have a case that should be reopened, how do you get the state attorney's office to take it into consideration? Again, your office is I'm going to say unique. I do a lot of stuff throughout the state of Florida and beyond, and this state attorney's office in the 4th Judicial Circuit seems to be leading the charge in things like this, whether it's the cold case initiative or the victims' rights or the conviction integrity unit. And in your office, I mean, typically most of these questions, reopening a case, looking at a case, are typically going to go through the law enforcement agency. The sheriff's office, the police department, whoever it is that's actually investigating the case. Now, your office and all state attorney's office have investigators, and many of them are retired detectives from law enforcement. And in fact, your office has a number of retired homicide detectives from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. They have, the chief investigator was NCIS for 30 plus years. They have tons and tons of investigative experience and absolutely capable of investigating homicide. But that's not really their role with your office.
Right.
You know what I mean? So again, it's your start usually is going to be with the police department or sheriff's office on reopening an investigation. If there's something that you can reach out to the state attorney's office in your area and ask them if they're willing to meet with you regarding a case that has no arrest. And quite honestly, you probably, Carl, you tell me, but I'm going to guess most people are going to be told there's not much we can do for you. Your office is again going to be unique and is going to sit down with that family and maybe tell Jewel, about what a typical meeting you would have with a family of an unsolved case in your office, how that would go. Is it, what are you discussing with the family? Because you're not saying,
I tell you, it's more
investigation.
It's more of listening to them. It's really listening to them. What is their concerns? What guidance can I give them as far as, outside of the legal aspect of it, but what kind of guidance can I give? Hey. But my recommendation would be, just reach out to your elected official. Reach out to your elected official and try to make that happen. Well, actually, I would start first with the attorney that was assigned to the case, and then move forward. In most instances, they're going to respond to you in some way, whether they tell you to go back to the investigating agency, or I know with our office, we'll try different ladders before it gets to the top, or it may go straight to the top. And a lot of it actually does go straight to the top. So
I don't want people to think that, like in your agency, in your office, that when they go and have a meeting, that now you are the investigating agency and you're taking over the case. That's not what you do when you have those meetings. That's not what the investigators do. So you don't want to burn your bridge with your detective because now you think you can call Carl, and get something done. Now,
I want to make that perfectly clear, is that, as far as what I do and what I'm there to help for, is I am a liaison between the state attorney and the victim, but I'm also there. That is my primary job. The primary job for me is the victims.
Yeah, and in a situation where a family came to your office, who's typically in that meeting? The family, and the attorney that's assigned to that case.
Correct. And we would attempt, in most instances, we would attempt to have the detectives also come over.
Yeah, and so if we're speaking in hypotheticals here, if for some reason you had some information that was helpful to the case that you couldn't get through to the police or to the detectives, or they didn't think it was important, or whatever that situation was, by presenting that to your office, basically it would just kind of close the loop. If it was something important, your office would say, okay, great, we will make sure that the detective, takes this.
Sometimes it's good to lay extra eyes on it. I've heard that said in our office so many times.
So it's, I just want to be clear there that I don't want people to think that that you guys are now taking over homicide investigation.
No.
But you will meet with them and listen, which is a lot of times what most of our families.
We'll try to make sure that there's an open communication with the detectives first, and if that's not effective and that's not working, then we can obviously pick up the reins and try to do what we can do. We can't, we don't investigate doing all that. So the cases are brought to our attorneys, and our attorneys make the decision from behind us.
Exactly. So
and to get you back on your suspension of the speedy trial from the Supreme Court order.
Yeah.
The speedy trial is all time periods involving speedy trial procedure and criminal and juvenile court proceedings shall remain suspended through the close of business on Monday, June 1st, 2020. The suspension applied in the manner described, and it has two case laws put: Sullivan versus State and State versus Menendez, and the third DCA and the fifth DCA. The suspension of time limits under the speedy trial procedures restores additional days equal to the number stated in the previous orders and this order. So that goes down to persons arrested for first-degree murder, incompetence to proceed. There's a 20-day time period. But I think one of the things that's really telling, and if you follow Article 1, Section 16, which is the Marsy's Law, is typically what it's known as, but Florida's constitutional rights for crime victims, and then state statute 960. One of the things I thought was very interesting in here is that to sum it up in what they have put in here for the victims, for the Supreme Court, and they've done a great job of doing it. It is a pretty short one, but it just says everything. It's Section D, which is like on page 10 of the order. It says victims. The constitutional rights of the crime victims must also be considered in all cases by the presiding judge. So it is in there, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
And that's the Florida Supreme Court?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, all of this has been looked at and thought through. Now, we joked about this earlier. I'm sure there's some defense attorneys just find time to challenge.
I can tell you, we have some very, and maybe I'm being biased, but we have some great talent in our office, and I know we have great talent in all of our offices throughout the state of Florida. They're prepared. I'm sure they're already looking into that, just in case that this is brought up by a defense attorney to challenge. Well, during this whole time, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. So I'm sure they're already looking into that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things when I was talking to you, kind of to start to wrap this up, was you started telling me about a e-Notify program that.
Yes.
Tell me. So give me the backstory that basically you figured out how to utilize this program.
And I don't have the actual legislation, but there was some legislation that was written, and it was to help. This is my understanding, is that it was to prevent and assist defendants and making sure that they make it. It was the court's way of ensuring that the defendants knew, and they had a way to know to show up in court, so that whenever they charged them for not showing in court, or being contempt of court and not a failure to appear, they had no excuse. So they started creating this thing, and this was after the amendment had passed that we discovered this. One of our great attorneys in our office, Sheila Lazos, had discovered that the Florida court system was creating this system, but we had Marsy's Law in effect, and the name of it is called e-Notify. It's electronic notification that goes out throughout the whole state of Florida. What you can do is you can sign up. Every person, you can be a party involved or a party not involved. You can sign up for the case, put the case number in. It's a uniform case number, which is the long clerk case number. You put that in there. And then you select either 14-day, 7-day, or 1-day notice.
Should I pull up that?
And we tested it, and it actually was our county was one of the counties that tested it. Nassau County was one of the counties that tested it. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna pull this up, and for our viewers out there that are watching that might be interested in this, and Carl can explain it. He's already told you what it is, the e-Notify, but this is how to register, right, Carl?
Yes. So this is actually the registration, and I've put this all in the hands of all of our staff, our attorneys, our support staff. Everybody has it. So it's really simple. It's you just go in, you sign in. All you need to have is a email address and a cell phone. These are step-by-step instructions, and if anybody needs them, they can always reach out to myself or Ryan if you're in the state of Florida. And I provided Ryan with a PowerPoint of it so that he can also make sure that the information gets out. And the email, I'm sorry, not the email, but the address, the web address. Go ahead. Back up a little bit. Can you back up?
It's not exactly a PowerPoint, but yeah. Is this where you wanted to go?
No, back to the page before that. No, it wasn't that page. It's the next page.
All right. Hold on. Let's see. I'm gonna run through. So it
Okay, you
starts
can stop
there.
there. Did you stop?
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Stopped.
So as you can see, e-Notify provides registered users with the text and email notifications regarding upcoming court events related to active criminal cases in Florida. These are active cases, not cases that are still under investigation. These are cases that they have identified somebody and made an arrest in. Unfortunately, we've had some of those, and I'm sure with everything that's going on, and law enforcement in our judicial system, that we're going to continue to keep having those, and cold cases will keep ticking off, and, being solved. So the e-notify would be available to them, and that is the case. That's what I was trying to get you back to. Is it's enotify.flcourts.org.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, there's the link right there is enotify.flcourts.org. And this is just is eNotify everywhere, or is
No,
it just
this
for
is just the state of Florida. So
Florida?
they
So
they
other states
created it.
may have something similar, but
I'm not sure if any other place has it. I know there was an RFP that went out on it, and they started doing it, and we signed up and tried to help with it. So there is password information. Log on. You'll have to have your cell phone or your email nearby whenever you get it, because you'll get a verification, and you have to verify that that's your information. It's just like anything that you would sign up for, as far as anything that's online.
yeah. And then once you confirm it, then
Once
you
you
can
confirm
actually
it, you can go in and sign in using your account or sign up.
log in, and then
That is what I was talking about, the verify.
yeah. Okay. So verify now. So that's how you verify
Correct.
once you have it. And then this is the dashboard. No, you're still verifying.
Yeah, you're
Good
still.
gosh.
Yeah, you have. They want to make sure that you're doing it for the right purposes, and you're not trying to, yeah. It's a good site. It really is. This is fantastic. We've tested it since October.
So now the verification email has been sent.
Yep.
You click OK, and now you're legit. You activate your account when you click that button, right?
Yes, I think you have to log back in.
Yeah, and okay.
Yep. And you log back in, and there's where you're going to put your party information and search by case. And
Okay.
if you have multiple cases. I know one of our cold cases that we're actually waiting on a sentencing on, because it was a cold case and the arrest was made. We have 2 defendants on, and you can sign up for both of them. If you have 3 defendants on, you can sign up for all 3 of them.
For all 3 of them.
Yeah. Right now, that's actually a prime example. This poor family, but is waiting on the sentencing because we're in the situation that we're in currently.
So I'm letting it kind of go. So because you basically walked through it here, you pick the county, you put in that 58-digit number.
Yeah. So it's not the state attorney case number. It's called a uniform case number, or if you're used to do law clerk of courts, it's called a clerk case number. What you can do is go on e-Notify, sign up, and I didn't put it in this slide, but in the e-Notify, when you go in and you're registering for it, at the very top it says if you're not sure about your county or your clerk system, click here for a directory, and when you click there, it actually takes you to a directory of every clerk system in the state of Florida.
Okay, and then so once you select it, you confirm that that's the case that you want
Correct.
to follow.
Correct.
And it will send you text, email, or both. And then you tell it if you are a party or an interested party, and then you've been added.
Correct.
And these are cases that are in the judicial system. An arrest has been made, and they are going through the judicial process of trial. So anytime there's a hearing, a pretrial, a status hearing, whatever it is, motion to suppress, whoever signed up for that would get an email and or text letting them know that, hey, court is, X day, X time, um, you know, if you would like to attend and be a part of it.
Right.
And so,
And some of these may
cases.
trigger people to call and check on the case. You're still welcome, and people that are using this are still welcome to sign on to the clerk of the courts and actually look in there. Some of the information is public information, some of the information is not. But they're also welcome to call us, or if you're in a different jurisdiction, you can always call your victim service unit with the state attorney's office. They'll be able to help you out.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, but that's a great tool for families that, I mean, you remember how we used to do it at Compassionate Families? We had a calendar and you'd print it out every Monday and check it off, and then you have to go in and
I still do that.
Oh my gosh!
Old habits are hard to break, Ryan. I still track my cases that way. I got every single case. Oops, sorry. I'm relaxed.
We're back. Yeah, well, because it worked, and it was one of the few ways that you could guarantee that you wouldn't miss something, as if you had it printed out and you marked through it. But that's a lot to ask a family. That was our job. Go into core, the clerk of court, do that.
And we always knew ahead of time because we had it on our Outlook calendar or something like that, which I found is just extremely valuable, was to have that Outlook calendar on there, because sometimes it's harder. You have to log into this system, log into that system. Even when we were in Compassionate Families, if you had it in your Outlook, you have what type of crime was committed, you have the case number, everything right there at the tip of your fingers. So,
it's definitely cumbersome stuff. So this Notify is great for families. I encourage them. Sandra Jones, Miss Jones asked if we were going to put that information up again. So, so really, you guys can email info@projectcoldcase.org. Miss Jones, you know how to get in touch with me or Carl. We provide that information and that link and that website to anybody that wants it. And I guess what I could do here,
another thing
real quick, is kind of for those that were curious, there's the link below the arrow where it says https://enotify.floridacourts.org. That's where you would go to set this up.
Yep. So, and like I said, you can track any case.
We're all out of whack here.
Disney World opened early.
Keep your arms and feet inside during the ride.
So one of the other things too is as far as Marcy's Law stuff too, if you go to SAO4th.com and click on resources. I'm sorry, I clicked too fast. I just messed myself up. Okay, there we go. All right. You go to SAO4th.com, click on the resources, and you'll see it says for attorneys, for the public, for victims. If you click the little one that says for victims, you're going to see in the very first, this is priority. This is what our elected state official has said. This is priority. This is the way it is. If you look at the very first one on there, it's information for victims. Assertion of crime victims' rights. And if you look underneath there's a hyperlink. It's a statement of crime victims' rights web form. When you go on there, you can sign up, sign that information, fill that information out, and we have an email address. It's marcyslaw@coj.net. This includes cases that are under investigation.
Yeah.
This protects your information from getting out. This also says that if we get any information that we need to let you know about, that's not obviously something that's critical that we're looking into that we're not sure of, that this is information that you do have a right to. So while I appreciate it and I understand, and I know a lot of people don't feel like they have rights, one of the things I want to try to make sure that people do understand, um, including people that don't have resolution in a case, is that you do have rights. Those rights don't expire. So
Right.
if you want, if your case is in Duval, Clay, or Nassau, you can go on there, go to that website, and fill that out, send it into the email address. Make sure you legibly write on there, because sometimes uh, it's hard to decipher what is put in. And then once you email it in, we'll follow up with you, put the information on it, put this on the case.
Yeah. And one of the things I know that is talked about in there that we've had some issues with is, um, you know, uh, whether those families want to be contacted by outside, sources. A lot of times people throw that out there that that's the media, and it's not just the media. If they withhold that information, organizations like Project Cold Case cannot get in touch with them either. And
So what
so
I'll do in them kind of instances like that, I will talk to them, because I'm dealing with homicide and cold cases. Um, if I have a case that there has not been an arrest on, I will talk to them about the organization or the community partners. And you're one of our community partners in Project Cold Case. And I'll just mention, look, hey, I want you to go check out this website. These are people that are here for you. They're here to support you. They have support meetings and everything else. Would you mind me sharing their information with them? Or do you want to get in contact with them, however you want? And most of the time, they just want to think about it and look over the stuff. And then they come back, and then, as long as they say yes, it's okay, then I can share the information. But I do try
right,
not to do it via email. And I know me and Ryan and me have, communicate referrals to them. I'm trying not to do it over the email, because the email could be subjected to public records. And public records, yes, our public records department is fantastic, but there's still potential that something gets slipped by. We don't want that information to go through. So do recognize this, and this goes across the country. Anything that you send to the law enforcement agency or the state attorney's office or district attorney's office, depending on where you're at, is public record.
yeah,
So don't put your
yeah.
social security number out or something like that, or something you don't
Well,
want to get out there, your home phone number, and you don't want the media contacting you,
or who you think may have committed the crime.
yeah, exactly. So just be aware of that whenever you're doing it. That's the best way for you to protect yourself. The other way in the state of Florida is to make sure that your rights are enforced with Marcy's law, and most of it, I'm on a statewide committee too, and every circuit has their own forms on it.
So, Carl, I don't know if you've had much contact with the Liver Nash family, Tina Hines case. I know Susan's now watching. Hi, Susan. Billy Carlisle in your office is very close with that family. Has worked with them for years and years
Well,
and
yeah,
years.
if you had Billy Carlisle on it, you probably haven't heard from me, because most of our people, I mean, if it's in the fashion of services that they need, um, they'll make sure they direct them to us. But
Yeah.
our team is so compassionate and so right there for you, and available and transparent, that you can reach out to them. And Carlisle is one of those. So
Oh yeah, Billy. I know they have a relationship where they can call each other anytime, and a lot of families, have a frustrating relationship with law enforcement and with the investigators, and they don't have that transparency and that availability, and not every case is like that though, and I know with Billy, he's always willing to speak to the family, and we do have, again, we kind of lump them all in that most families have poor communication with law enforcement, but there are families that have developed really, really good, powerful relationships over the years. And Susan is commenting on Melissa too, that Billy's a great guy, and Melissa Nelson too. And that's coming all the way from, I think, Wisconsin, right, Susan? Was that where you guys live? So, whoa, you okay over there, Carl?
Cats, man, cats.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of things I want to touch on again. It's National Crime Victims' Rights Week. This is an opportunity where we normally would all have the chance to come together and support each other, and we don't have that right now, other than Facebook Lives and these kind of video conferencing. Know that we're trying to work through that too. We're going to have a virtual vigil Thursday at 6 p.m. on our Project Gold Case Facebook page. We encourage everyone to share the pictures of their loved ones, memories of their loved ones, inspiring, and encouraging quotes or images. We will have a support meeting this month again because of the virus. We're all testing out new technology. We're actually going to do a Zoom support meeting. So if you are interested, which means for once, you don't have to be local to attend our support meeting. You can attend from anywhere across the country, and
you still wear your pajamas.
Yeah. Please come clothed and appropriate. But what you have to do is you have to reach out to our office, because we will send out an invite the day of the support meeting, which I believe is April 30th, the last Thursday of the month. And you have to reach out to our office so we can send you that email, because we don't want just anybody logging on and joining us for the support meeting. We want to keep that to survivors. So reach out to Frida at our office. You can email her, Frida WP, that's FREDA WP at projectcoldcase.org, or you can call the office 904-525-8080. That is written in a comment now in this in the live feed. So reach out to Frida, because the only way you'll get the email with that information is through her. She's the gatekeeper, and that's kind of going to help us to make sure that we can vet who logs in and who doesn't. But we will be trying that out on the 30th. Carl, thank you for everything you do for victims, for everything you do at the state attorney's office. Thank you for fighting that fight for us. There's something about being at the table, right? And what I mean by that is when you're a victim, you may be at a table full of other victims, or you may be at a table by yourself. But when you have a job at the state attorney's office, you have the ear of attorneys, you have the ear of investigators, of police, of elected officials, and you bring that voice, the victim voice, to that table, and there's that can be often overlooked, and it shouldn't be. Having you at that table is better for every single one of us out here. So we appreciate the work that you do, and
we appreciate everything that you guys do, for sure.
Well, it's a good part.
One of the other things I wanted to just, and maybe this is just something to think about for the rest of the week, is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Is just to remember, and this is hard to grasp, and I'm not going to jump up and do it. I usually have this little thing that I do. I jump up, jump around in my jacket, and then take my jacket off, and obviously you see that the jacket is nothing. What we are right now is just a shell. White, black, yellow, it doesn't matter. This is just a shell. The memories you make today is what makes you. So the memories of those that you've lost, make sure that you share them. Share them every day. Share them especially during this week. Don't be afraid to stand up. Don't be afraid to stand out there and say, this is my father, this is my son, this is my daughter. Everybody's grieving, I know, but I'm talking about mine at this point. I don't care if it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 13 years. Keep sharing them. Because as long as you keep sharing them, there's no man nor woman that can ever take that away from you. Therefore, there's never a defendant. You always want the resolution. You want somebody that you're going to hold responsible. But until that time comes, just remember, what makes a person is them. the inside, not the shell.
Thank you, Carl. You always have a way of putting things into words that are powerful for our families they connect with. It's something you used to do a lot on Facebook, but you don't do a whole lot
Yeah,
anymore.
I got off Facebook, and I don't want to get into it, but yeah, politics are not my thing as far as national politics, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I went through a surgery, had my had shoulder surgery, and I was off Facebook for a while, and I just stayed off. The other day, I was playing around with some program, and we recently had a loss in our office, young lady from cancer, and I was just trying to create a picture, and somehow it got hooked up to my Facebook, and it changed my Facebook profile picture, and everybody started freaking out, and they started saying, "Hey, have we missed you? You're here." I promise you guys, I'm coming back. I'm gonna post up my morning daily motivations and quotes and everything else, but right now I'm just trying to keep my sanity, and I recommend that to everybody. Take a break from anything that's just taking your mind, and then get your wheels back running. That's what I was talking about. Change that oil in the car.
That's another thing that Beth brought up, is we got to take care of ourselves.
And we can't serve other people if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. So thank you, Carl. Know that James Harms is always towards the front of my mind, and that tomorrow, like a lot of days, I will be thinking about him. I'll be thinking about you. I'll be thinking about your family, and know that I have watched the rise of Carl Harms, and it's an amazing and inspiring story. I encourage people to go back and look through our archived Facebook Live to see the first one we did with Carl. Carl's authored a few books in the Grief Diary series, and participated and done a lot of great things for survivors. So thank you again, Carl. Thank you to everybody that watched today, that asked questions, that chimed in, that joined us. Now that we've figured out how to do split screen, you won't just have to
Believe
look
me,
at
this
me
was not easy,
anymore.
guys. This was not easy. We've tested it for 2 days now. So
That's right. So hopefully it came off without a hitch, and hopefully now I can get some other people to join me on here, so people won't just have to look at me until we're back at the office. So thanks again, Carl. Thanks everybody. Again, tune in Thursday for our virtual vigil, and we will see everybody next time. Carl, tell your office I said hello.
I will, definitely.